The sky was bleeding orange as the sun sank behind the fields, and the wind carried the last breath of a fading day across the lonely road. She sat there, trembling in the dirt, hugging her knees against the chill that wasn't from the weather, but from the kind of fear that burrows into the bones dust clung. To her legs, mascara streaked her cheeks, and her heartbeat throbbed like a trapped bird against her ribs. Then came the sound, low, rolling, rising, the growl of an approaching motorcycle, echoing like a warning through the empty countryside. When the chrome glint appeared and the engine cut off beside her, she whispered the only thing her panic would allow, "Please don't hurt me." But the biker didn't raise his voice, didn't move fast, didn't even remove the intensity. From his eyes, he just knelt before her, slow, deliberate, careful, as if she were something fragile left on a battlefield. And in that moment, the world shifted. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us tell more stories that matter. She wasn't sure when the trembling began. Maybe long before the biker even arrived, maybe earlier that afternoon, after the argument that had hurled her out of the car and onto the roadside, maybe on the long walk she attempted before collapsing next to an old wooden fence, every step heavy with humiliation and the weight of a life she no longer felt she controlled. Her dress was wrinkled, her shins scraped, and her mind replayed the words that had cut her deeper than the fall. She felt invisible, unwanted, and painfully alone. So when the motorcycle stopped, fear leapt before logic could. In her world, strangers weren't saviors, they were threats. But the man in front of her didn't fit the shape of danger, not the way her past had taught her. Yes, he was broad-shouldered and tattooed, a presence carved of asphalt and grit. Yes, his boots were heavy and his stare sharp enough to slice through a lie. But when he pulled off his worn leather jacket and laid it gently on the ground in front of her, he wasn't trying to intimidate. He was showing her something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. The jacket smelled like the road, like wind and gasoline and freedom, and she could feel its warmth even before he slid it around her shoulders. Her breath hitched, not from fear now, but from confusion. Why was he being kind? He sat down beside her, not too close, not crowding her, and the silence settled between them like a blanket rather than a barrier. She could hear him breathing slowly, as if trying to sync his rhythm with hers. She didn't tell him what happened, not. At first, she didn't tell him how she'd run out of choices or how the people she trusted had chipped away at her until only fear remained. She didn't even look him directly in the eyes. She just let the warmth of the jacket wrap her like armor and waited for the world inside her to stop shaking. The biker didn't ask questions, didn't push her to speak. Instead, he pointed toward the horizon where light painted the tall grass gold and said in a voice low and steady that sometimes sunsets were reminders that endings could be beautiful too. She didn't reply, but something inside her cracked, not in pain but in recognition. She realized she hadn't noticed a sunset in a long time. She hadn't noticed anything good in a long time. Eventually the words spilled out, not in a neat story, not in a straight line, but in fragments, small confessions that carried more emotion than detail. She told him about promises broken, about the person who had driven away and left her stranded, about the feeling of being small in a world that constantly demanded strength. Her voice faltered, but she kept speaking because for the first time, someone was listening without judgment. He told her she deserved better, not in a grand speech, but with the simple conviction of someone who believed it. He told her that people's cruelty was a reflection of their own fractures, not her worth. He told her that being broken didn't mean being beyond repair. She expected pity. Instead, she found understanding. As the evening deepened, she felt the heaviness in her chest begin to lift. The biker stood and offered his hand, rough and calloused, but steady as the earth itself. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. When he helped her up, it wasn't with the force of someone trying to rescue her. It was with the care of someone who wanted her to rise on her own terms. He walked her to his motorcycle, handed her his helmet, letting her know she was safe, that he would take her wherever she needed to go. And somehow, even without knowing him, she believed him. Trust wasn't easy for her, but kindness had a way of disarming even the heaviest fears. The ride into town was a blur of wind and fading sunlight, but she remembered the feeling, the first breath of freedom after weeks of suffocating. When they reached a small diner, he insisted She eats something warm, telling her that food had a way of grounding people when life felt unsteady. She didn't argue inside. The staff greeted him like a familiar friend, and she watched him laugh softly with them, realizing that the world painted bikers one way, but reality painted them another. She knew this moment wouldn't magically fix her life. She knew she had choices to make, wounds to heal, roads to rebuild. But she also knew something she hadn't known hours before. Kindness still existed, even in unexpected forms, and sometimes the first step toward healing was simply being shown that you mattered. When he finally asked gently where she wanted to go, she told him she wasn't sure yet, but she did know. She wasn't going back to the life that had left her broken by the roadside. He nodded, as if he already expected that answer. He offered help, but never pushed. He offered support, but never demanded anything in return. It was the kind of compassion that stays with a person long after the moment passes. As he drove her to a safe place for the night, she stared at the passing lights and realized that maybe, just maybe, this stranger with a leather jacket and a weary heart had given her something she didn't know. She lost hope. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Before we end, I'd love to know what part of this story resonated with you the most. Please share your thoughts in the comments.